Welcome to Dr. Ta's Real Talk, which is the third component of the Stronger Transformation Framework. Dr. Ta's Real Talk is presented by DQ Consulting, LLC, empowering individuals and businesses to grow with clarity and confidence. This is a limited vertical series, Real Talk is. It's rooted in honest conversations about life as it actually shows up. Life is not polished. It's not always packaged. It's just life, and it does be lifing. Real talk is where growth meets reality, where healing is still messy, where boundaries are tested, where love, fatigue, faith, identity, and becoming all live in that same body, that same empire, our bodies. I'm joined by OnJerya Smith, and together we're having the conversation people think quietly to themselves. They probably feel sort of deeply. That's the reason we do it to ourselves, we're thinking. And, we rarely say this stuff out loud because for some of us, we don't want to be judged. So wherever you're listening from, pull up a chair. The space is for truth, reflection, and real life. OnJerya, I just made the statement that some of us don't want to be judged. So we have these conversations within ourselves and we don't share them. But I think sometimes it's not the fear of being judged. We think that we are alone. We're the only people, or we're the only person that's experiencing this uneasiness or feeling some kind of way, as I'll say sometimes. And so therefore, we don't share it or seek assistance because we think there's something wrong with us. But many people are still encountering this uneasiness every day. They may be spiritual, but they're no longer quiet about what has harmed them or what they're feeling. So my question is, why is silence often encouraged in environments that really harmony, that they say they value love, they say they value supporting others, but they also value tradition. So why is silence often encouraged in those sorts of environments?
I feel that silence is encouraged because people lack the accountability. See, when I'm quiet, I'm easy to blend in. And as a result of blending in, that means that people don't even know that I'm in the room, right? So therefore, I don't have to own it. I don't have to be accountable for whatever it is that the action is that I've done. And as you started off with your statement prior to asking that question about, why do people not want to be judged? Again, the accountability is a big part of it. It's like when you say the word accountability, people just freeze up. Because it's like, why should I be held accountable? Mm-hmm. But why should you be silent? They go hand in hand, right? Because why would you let someone quiet your voice when you have the opportunity to speak up? You have an opportunity to share your story, share your testimony, share your experiences. Why would you allow someone to silence you? Which again goes back to that accountability aspect, right? Because if I'm accountable, I know that I have the ability to do better and moving in a different light than what I'm currently moving in. So why would I allow someone to silence my voice, right? Because isn't that what part of this series was about with Dr. Velma?
Mm-hmm. Reclaiming your voice.
Reclaiming
I believe that you've lost, I believe, from my own experiences that I had lost my voice. But I also said you can't reclaim it until you can find it.
Right.
Which that means goes back to you and accountability, because that means it's a verb. I gotta go look for it. I gotta do something in order to get it so that I can fortify this body, my world, my life, my empire. And I keep saying that, guys, because it's an analogy. You are a universe and you are a body, but we are fortified. The Bible talks about putting on the full armor of God. Well, when you do that, you are fortifying the body. So again, I want to go back to what you just said, OnJerya, and like I said, it's a verb, but I want to massage this a different way. So I had a thought when you were speaking. Now, the question was, why is silence often encouraged in environments that are really supposed to be harmonious, those traditional environments that are supposed to be so supportive, and I thought about that from a cultural expectation. Well, you've said it multiple times. Children aren't supposed to be seen and not heard. Women were supposed to be seen and not heard. So therefore, if I'm seen and not heard, well, obviously I'm going to be silent. I'm not going to share my truth. My authentic self is never going to show up because that's not what this environment welcomes. But then my thought was, and I'm throwing this out here for you in the audience, is silence encouraged because the status quo, I'm going back to Dennis Perkins now, and the faith matters. And with everything, there's a little bit of truth, because we're in Genesis now, in the Garden of Eden. You eat of this fruit, you're gonna be like God. Well, it's a little truth there. You gonna know right and wrong. Well, you did get to know right and wrong, but you're not gonna be like God, big G. So there's a little truth there, but there was some deception there. So my thought was, is silence encouraged because the status quo has made that the standard? But when they made it the standard, I don't know why they became the standard back then. But now, is it that the standard has become a way of controlling folks? Because if I don't say anything, then nothing's going to change. So whether I'm talking churches, whether I'm talking jobs, whatever, I'm talking relationships, personal relationships, or family dynamics. If I don't say anything, the silence, well, nothing changes, which then goes back to your thing about accountability. If that be the truth, there's always a little bit of truth in everything. If that then is the truth, I'm not conditioned to take on accountability. Because if I take accountability, I may go against the status quo. Don't y'all miss that now. Because when I begin to challenge and speak out, and I use the word challenge for a reason, because it's a perception thing. When I start to speak and no longer use the corporate voice that Dr. Velma and I talked about in Reclaiming Your Voice, and start to use my authentic voice, well, some people their feathers may get a little ruffled. So then they have to figure out how to quiet me, which means if you're quieting me, you're trying to regain control over me so that I no longer feel that I'm accepted or that I have that right to express myself. So again, when we're just working through this. So the question becomes then, how do individuals process experiences where faith communities, they're the one that caused it? I got a problem called church hurt. How do you begin to process that when the churches or the individual in the churches that has caused that? How do you reconcile that the church is supposed to be a place that I go for help, but they're the one causing me this harm?
Some people would say, grief Some people would say anger, maybe withdrawal, sometimes questioning, right? That division, right? Because we're supposed to be bringing like what souls or whatever to Christ, bringing people to Christ, sharing the good news. Well, if I'm silent, I can't really share the good news, can I?
I can't with you, OnJerya. Let me tell you something, Tammy. What just popped in my brain? I know I interrupt you mid sentence, but I'm gonna say this, and you're gonna catch it because I'm gonna have to camouflage this. The camouflage, I think, is a deception. That's Dennis Perkins' title, one of them books. If you have silenced me, we're talking churches now. If you have silenced me, then we can't expect our church to grow, can we?
No.
Mic drop. Think about it. Because I'm silenced, the church can't grow because I don't have a voice.
But the thing is, though, as a result of the church not growing, who suffers?
Well, the church don't suffer because, well, let me rephrase that. The building don't suffer.
Right.
Now, guys, work with me because maybe y'all have heard this, and maybe you can work with me with this now. The church is within me. Okay. So therefore, the church is going to suffer because you see, I'm suffering. See, now I'm talking about a different analogy. It's not the empire. The church is me because it dwells in me. It's not a building. So when that happens and I've got church hurt or I'm being made to be silent, which then may cause some church hurt, well, the church is going to suffer. Now, somebody may say, well, no, the church not going to suffer. Yeah, your church going to suffer. Let me tell you how your church is. See, all that stuff that God was pouring in me, that I was pouring into the church, meaning the building and the people there. See, I'm not going to do that no more, you see. See, he may be pouring it into me, but because you have silenced me and told me that you try to put baby in the corner. Since you've done that, I'm not going to share the things that could build up the structure, the building, not me, the building that we all come together to have church in. I'm not going to bring that forward anymore. So what are you saying, TAS? Ministry ideas, connections that could help us and help the church to grow? I'm not going to do that anymore because you see, you silenced me. And you thought it was okay to do that.
But my question is, even though you're silent, do you feel ignored?
Ignored by who? That's the question.
Well, ignored by the community, i.e., the people in the building of the church. Not the church within itself, right? But the people that's within them four walls.
Do you feel ignored? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like, so when you're silent, right, when your church hurt, and I think we actually need to, like, define, like, what is church hurt, right?
And yeah.
What
is church hurt? And again, that's going to vary.
Right, that's definitely going to vary. Church hurt is basically any type of emotional, spiritual, or, relational pain that occurs when someone is wounded by people, i.e., it's the leaders, it's the teaching, it's the policies, it's experiences within the church or the faith community. So whether it's the pastor, whether it's the deacon or the deaconess, whether it's the Sunday school teacher, the Baptist Training Union teacher, the superintendent, the Sunday school, let's take it even higher. Not even so much at the local level, right? Because many of these churches are in associations, and it's funny because I received an email today because I believe, if no mistake, it's the National Baptist Convention is going on right now, or it starts. Yeah, starts tomorrow. So right now, essentially. In Missouri, right? So they're doing all these big like promos to Christian education and again, being a part of the association, the bigger picture, not just your local level, that can silence you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how does one, as we've been saying, bounce back from that?
Uh-huh.
How do you bounce back from that hurt. But I think the question I would pose is, now that we've defined what church hurt is, we've kind of like basically, talked about some of the things that can happen as a result of the church hurt. Do you even recognize that individual, like that individual that is experiencing that? Do they even realize that they're going through this church hurt? That they're being hurt by the church? Because, of course, as we know, that's not what it's intended for, right?
I think sometimes, OnJerya, and I think that's a very good question that you've asked, because I think sometimes because we get so wrapped up in this world that has been created, this orchestrated world that we live in, and that has all these different corporate voices, I think that for some people, they don't even realize what's happening. And because they want to honor spirituality, they're willing to suppress their personal truth.
Yeah.
So they don't even remember. You already talked about, in a prior episode about the difference between being overwhelmed. No, yeah, I think overwhelmed is when it relates to relationship and decision making. Your mind is cloudy, so you can't even see what's in front of you. So is when you've been hurt that way, and you're trying to mend, it's easy to look at it from the upside down perspective, because that's more palatable, that's more accepting to you, because it's hard to believe, it's hard to accept that the people in the church don't mean you no good, that they really meant that, they meant to hurt you.
But then the question is, with that, let me see if I'm gonna get it right. Is it, and I feel like you had this conversation with Karan.
Mm-hmm.
Keep pedaling. Is it happening?
I did.
Am I right? Is it happening to you? Or is it happening, what is it, for you?
Mm-hmm. But you see, OnJerya, and you're right to bring that up. Karan Joseph Riley, we had one of our interviews. He brought that up as we were talking. We were beginning to unpack his book, Keep Pedaling. And Karan indicated that sometimes life is happening for us, but we think it's happening to us. And the thing that I want to kind of weave this, OnJerya, because you bring a good point. When the standard has been, because remember, there's a little bit of truth. Dennis Perkins' Faith Matters. When the lie becomes the standard, when the corporate voice has been placed on us, I know we're talking church now, and that's fine, but it's the same process no matter what it is. It'll be your personal relationship, the person lives beside you every night. When that corporate voice has been placed on us and we have adopted it, when you start looking at this hurt that I'm experiencing through my spirituality, I want to keep my faith, and I want to be connected. And lots of times we still believe that true connection has to be in a building. So then it's like, as you said, because I got to suppress my personal truth in order to be accepted there. Is this happening to me or happening for me? Now, if we go back to the accountability lens, and I have no glasses near me, if we go back to the accountability lens, it's happening for you, is what Karan would probably say. Because when you begin to understand this is happening to shake you out of this funk that you in,
right?
But that you done got comfortable in, and you don't know that you's in a pit with snakes, and it's trying to shake you awake so you can get up out of there.
Yeah.
It's happening for you to save you. But you see, because I've not ever been allowed to take accountability, because accountability means that I have rights.
Yeah.
I have rights. And when we accept a standard, now work with me out. When the standard in this family is that it's okay for people to be molested, That's not a standard in the family, because you see, it started out as somebody did wrong. Then we covered it up. Then it got visited on the next generation. And then with the next generation, then we start calling them generational curses. Well, it's really the standard in that family. I'm sorry. Because you see, we're not challenging that standard. Then you get this nice person that comes along and say, wait a minute, now, that ain't right. That ain't right. We got to do something about this. It's like, okay, what do you mean? Who is this person saying that this ain't right? Because now they're challenging the status quo. They're challenging the standard. Who are they to challenge what we have sanctioned by our behavior? Whether you speak or you don't speak, your lack of speaking is sanctioning what has happened. Because now we've all taken on that corporate voice, and that corporate voice is a crack that we not see no evil, speak no evil.
Yeah,
it didn't happen. You made that up. I want to hear that. Don't bring that to me no more. Well, you see, now we're reinforcing that. And the person loses their voice. They lose their identity, which makes them very vulnerable. If it's a female, let's just work with a female. It makes them very vulnerable to men. And I'm not saying the female even had to have been sexually abused. It just makes them very vulnerable because they've received mixed messages in the home, in the family environment. Now let's go back to church. If I'm receiving all of that in church too, I don't know which way is up. Which way did it go? Which way did it go? I don't know. But I have to make a decision. Do I want to be received? And how much am I willing to be deceived in order to be received? But again, great question. I want to say this segment is brought to you by Irene Baxberg. After a life-changing accident left her in chronic pain, Irene refused to give up. Today, she inspires others by sharing her journey to hope and healing. Follow Irene Baxberg on Instagram. Find her at health_VAKSBERG, Baxberg. Now, OnJerya, I want to jump to this. How do you rebuild trust after being unheard and dismissed? How do we begin to build back that trust?
Well, first of all, you have to acknowledge what happened, which we know is hard to do, right? Because it goes back to that accountability. Why? Because if I said that this happened to me, right, the person that I am having said conversation with must acknowledge that it happened, right? Whether it did or it didn't, the person wants to be heard. So you must acknowledge that, yes, I hear you, I understand you. If you say that it happened, that's all that I have to go by, right? Because I'm trying to build trust. Because essentially, when you've been church hurt, you've lost the trust. You've lost your faith in the people, the physical people.
Physical people.
The physical people. Not the church within self. The people that's sitting in them four walls. So you have to acknowledge the hurt or acknowledge what happened. Then you have to allow yourself to grieve. Meaning that it happened, but I have to process that it happened and what happened. And just because you're grieving, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It's a part of the healing process, right? Like, and everybody grieves differently. You're going to have some people that every time you talk to them, they're angry. You say good morning. What did you do? And you're like, I just said good morning. I ain't talking to you no more. Some people will grieve and become a little, promiscuous. They get a little addiction going. Because again, there is a void that they are trying to fill. But they're ultimately grieving because there is a loss and they feel like no one was there to protect me. And then you have to get to the stage of forgiveness, right? Understanding that there's a difference between me forgiving you and then me trusting you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can forgive you all day long, but if I don't trust you, then it's a moot point. And so as a result of that, when I forgive you, I have to release that hurt. I have to be willing to release that pain and understand that this is what transpired. It happened. I'm grieving it, and it's okay. Now, with the trust, understanding that the trust is earned. Because if you say that you have my back, or that you believed in me, or that you're going to protect me, or you're going to stand by my man, or stand by the church, or stand by whoever, I have to see it in your actions, in your behavior. Not just you talking, because we good at doing that lip service. But I need to see it in action in order for me to be able to trust you again. And then you have to be consistent and understand that people are not perfect. We all fall short. That was one of the Bible verses, and Lord, I don't want to misquote it because it's been so long. When I went to Tabernacle, it was a private Christian school, and I think it's Romans 3:23. We've all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. I think it's Romans 3:23. Just understanding that people are trying. They're trying. They're not going to be perfect. And are they taking the responsibility for what has transpired? Is the behavior changing? Are they being transparent? Are they establishing boundaries? Are they honoring that commitment? Are they providing that safe space for me in order to build that trust? Because if they are, and I am at a place of acceptance, then I'm going to be A-okay. But most importantly, even all of that I've said, you must give yourself permission to heal.
And I think that's very important, OnJerya. And I like the fact that you talked about forgiving is one thing. That's releasing the pain, the hurt. But that doesn't mean that you have my trust back. And I think that I thought about that love bombing again. You love bomb me, and then you do something that you may put your hand on me. You might talk negatively to me. But then you expect me to just smile it off. It don't work that way. Now, maybe it worked that way in the movies, and maybe it has worked that way with some other people that you know. It don't work that way. And so my thing is, as we move from that idea of, how do you regain trust? The next thing I thought about, well, when is it necessary, though, to create new spaces for growth and safety? Because, again, sometimes it's just not going to be. You just can't keep. You have dug your hole and you have fallen into it. And unlike Joseph, his brothers put him in the hole or whatever, the people not coming by to go take you on down to Egypt. You in the hole. So sometimes that's it. So when is it necessary to create new spaces for your growth and your safety? Because we're talking about that person. And we got to have real talk about me. When is it time to go and move on? Find another place to squat.
If they didn't do steps A through G,
well, it's time to go there.
That's it.
How many times I'm supposed to let them tell me they love me, they gonna do it? Or they got a plan or whatever?
I mean, really, it should just be once, but let's be real. We human.
Yeah, we human.
We human. We out here in the flesh. Mm-hmm. And we gullible. We birds. We birds. We birds. We out here picking up, falling for any and everything. But it really should just be that one and done. Because what they say, fool me once, Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. Did I get that right?
I think you got it right.
Yeah. So if, and I'm not saying that, you can't do the 3 strikes you're out, or I'm not saying that. Because again, it's going to be subject to the circumstance. Because some situations are more severe than others. Okay. But the bottom line is, if me personally, don't see that someone is putting in the work, they're not making an effort, then it's time for me to grab my little red wagon and I'm going to pull it this way while you grab your little red wagon and you can pull it that way. And we can cut ties. It doesn't mean that, I love you any less. It's just that, unfortunately, our journey has ended at this station, and I wish you the best on all your future endeavors.
Absolutely. And, OnJerya, this has been such an enlightening and enriching conversation, knowing when to pull up stakes and move to another reservation is so important. And it really helps us to understand the importance of boundaries. You can't let people just continually push through the line and keep doing things repeatedly. And somebody may say, well, Dr. Smith or Dr. Thomas, they didn't, this is the first time they did that, but there's a pattern here. Don't forget the pattern.
The
pattern. They may do it different. It may show up different ways. It's still a pattern. It's the behavior, and you cannot afford to overlook that behavior consistently, because what's going to happen is you're going to be the one that's hurt, not them. They're going to be fine. You're going to be the one who's compromised. So we have to begin to know that it's okay to proactively set boundaries that protect you. Because real talk is about you. It's not about them. But we tend to want to focus on them instead of focusing on us. And that's a conversation for another day. Thank you for sitting in this conversation with us. Real talk is not about having it all figured out. It's about telling the truth about where you are and giving yourself permission to grow from there. As you move through the rest of your day, we invite you to sit with this question. What did this conversation name for you that you have been carrying quietly? You don't have to resolve it today. Awareness is part of the work. This conversation is part of a 4-episode limited series. Each episode stands on its own, but together they explore boundaries, burnout, healing, and becoming in real life. And you know the drill. Before you go trying to take care of someone else, make sure you take care of yourself first. Bye now.
Bye.